up on Joystick, Kotaku.
Yeah. Rock, Paper, Shotgun.
I mean, it was amazing.
I mean, the videos got like 85,000 views in the first week, which we were happy with. Yeah. So at least that convinced us to keep going with the project. We didn't even know if it was a viable game concept. We were like, let's see what happens. Throw this out there, see if people like it, and that convinced us to keep going with it. So
that's a really valuable tool. I mean, just right there to get an idea of, I guess the trick is, if you guys feel like you let too much of the cat out of the bag early, it's like there's a trade-off there.
I don't know if we did it at that stage, but I think certainly later, subsequently, we certainly did. I think at that point it did a lot of good for us. Got the word out. People were like, oh, I heard about this last week.
I don't really understand why is it too bad to tell them too much. I don't really understand why it's so. Can you spoil it?
I think in a sense, like if you've already talked about it and people stop paying attention to it because like already know everything about this, then when you finally release it, there's sort of no buzz. I mean, what you want
need to time that buzz before the release.
I think so.
I think it's not about that it's too much information.
Well, I think it's content, because at first we told people about the concept. Like this is reckless disregard for gravity. It's going to be about this. Here's a sneak peek. And then we're in closed alpha, which that was not a bad thing. And then we said, here's open alpha.
You can play it.
There's almost this like story that you tell.
Well, but and then we said, oh, by the way, now you can, you can order the pre-release, and then people are like, I already played it. So
I think it's important to look at it exactly like a narrative as a story, because it's the narrative of your company, and that's how the writers look at it. If you talk to Alexander from Joystick, he's here in Boston, and he'll say exactly that. It's just a narrative of your company. And you see the ongoing story of these press releases coming out from these guys. I think it's interesting, but it's all about the relationships that you have with these guys. Like I can email Alexander and we can have a discussion and a call, and it's just we have like a trust with each other where he can tell me like, oh, that idea is not that interesting or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or some guys you can just email them practically anything and they'll write about it. Yep. But it's totally, what I'll do is we'll go to like GDC or E3 and have a party, or just go to the events that they're already at and talk to these guys.
I want to hear more about that. How do you? That's the whole beard thing. How do you get in touch with the press person?
Just go to as many events as you can. Go to things like this, or like the MIT SIG that Mike talked about earlier. Alexander actually from Joystick goes to those sometimes. But just events in general. Just go out there and try to meet these guys and talk to them and learn their names.
One thing that helped me a lot was I ended up getting invited by a friend that I had met. After I started MacGuffin, I started really networking in general within Boston Games.
I noticed.
And then from that, a lot of you get to a point, I think, with your personal networking where it takes on a life of its own. So suddenly you go from introducing yourself to everybody to having people come and introduce themselves to you, which is really weird. And then from there, I ended up a friend of mine who I became friends with because of meeting people and talking. He invited me to go to a thing at GDC that was pretty much, he grabbed up a bunch of people that he thought were doing cool things in the game space and a bunch of the other bloggers and people that he knew, and had us all have dinner together. And so that was something where general networking led to specific opportunities, because I ended up in relationships with people, and I mean it sounds sort of mercenary that way, but a buddy of mine was like, let me help out my friends, and pulled a bunch of us together.
Well, so that's why you're there. So I think it's perfect. We probably want to do more of that.
Yeah.
Than we are.
Even with the stuff we have done, the one thing I've tried to do is when someone writes about us, I definitely write to them and try to make a connection with them and say, hey, we really like that article. Here's what we have coming. Would you be interested in doing a feature, an interview with Ichiro? Because you were nice enough to write about us last time. So shower them with compliments for the work they did and thank them, and then immediately throw the hook in to try to get something more out of them. So you sort of try to cultivate that relationship. Ultimately, they're the press. They want to write interesting stuff. If you give them interesting stuff to write about, and they don't have to go and search games press to find stuff, they're going to write about your stuff. So certainly once you get the initial contact, we maintain I won't call it a database, an Excel sheet with the names, when they wrote about us, what they wrote about us, so that when the first press release just said, hey, sir, or whatever, or sir, /madam, but subsequent ones I've said, hey, Jim, thanks for writing about us the last time. We got, 40 people who commented, by the way, here's our new one. So I try to personalize it, and I will actually write one email at a time because it's worth that extra day worth of effort.
Yeah.
You know, because they probably don't remember you, but if you say you wrote that article about us on June 5th, here's the link, and we really liked it, you know, can you write about us again?
Here's a dual question maybe that overarches all of this. Why should you do any PR? How much should you do? What do you get out of it? What do we get out of it? What does anybody here who does PR get out of it? What have you been missing out on, if anything, by not doing PR about, you know, your upcoming title?
Well, actually, I'll say, like, and I'm still a little fuzzy on this, and maybe you can answer this or somebody else. The difference, strictly speaking, between marketing and PR, because they are different things, but they overlap to an extent. So my understanding is that for marketing, it is you going out and spending money and/or effort to say, this is, you know, here's this thing, you should buy this.
Well, that's advertising.
Okay. Versus,
No, that's a
I think
great
they're all
question.
subsets of marketing.
That's a great question. Marketing is essentially producing a game and making people want to buy that game, right? So marketing came when we first thought of our concept for the game. You know, what do a lot of people do? They say, well, I want to make a game, and I want to make a game that I want to play, right? That works if your game is also a game that everybody else wants to play. But if you think about it from the other way, if you say, what is out there that's missing? You know, there are 17 genres of games that I can pinpoint. And then there are games being made for 10 of them. How about those other 7? Right? So we said, here are things that we think would be interesting to people. And that was a marketing-driven thing. I mean, our marketing and our gameplay are really close together. So it starts with what game you write. It starts with you know, putting stuff in a game that people will talk about. That's marketing. And then it goes on to PR. It goes on to advertising.
Tell me about PR versus marketing then.
So actually, let me just, I will answer your question and briefly try to adjust that distinction. I look at marketing as being a collection of things. It's everything from what is your brand and how you manage that. It's doing the PR. It's doing social media. It's inbound marketing, which is a term that's used in the software industry, which is what do people really want to see in this game? I mean, for example, we put out the early prototypes and threw stuff out there in part to see what stuck, and then we kept some and we ditched the others. So it was really like almost, you know, user-centered development, if you will, in a sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's inbound and outbound marketing. Inbound, where you ask your customers what they want, and in some industries that works, in some doesn't. So the distinction here, I look at the PR stuff that we do as things where we're directly trying to get people to talk about us or spread buzz. And maybe, I don't know if that's an official definition of PR, but at least from my perspective, I look at PR is where we're trying to build buzz. So it's the press releases, it's the trying to get a review, putting out a YouTube video in the hope that it goes viral, doing a Twitter competition. I just think all of that's just a subset of marketing. So I don't know if it makes sense to try to split them. I think you can look at what's your overall marketing strategy, what involves a PR strategy involves, you know, what's the overarching concept of this game, and what's the, we talk about the Dejobaan voice, so what's our Dejobaan voice, and that has to come through every game we do. So we can't, you know, it would not be appropriate for us to do a set of things because those are not consistent with the Dejobaan voice. And we will think about that every time we write something. When we write something, we'll say, that doesn't, the Dejobaan voice wouldn't do that. We wouldn't say that, and we're like, all right, what is the Dejobaan voice? We need to.
He says it just like that, too.
No, it's literally like we will indoctrinate our interns so that they learn how to speak in the Dejobaan voice and develop in the Dejobaan voice. So that, but it's a key thing to our brand. We believe that if we do that, people say, "Oh, look, it's a Dejobaan game. It looks like a Dejobaan game."
Yeah.
At least that's, you know, what you've done for your
So part of what you do is to develop your look and your feel. So that
yeah, and
that's like part of your corporate identity. So
absolutely. Like, I mean, Apple has a corporate identity, right? It's distinct.
Every
Exactly.
to their color schemes.
Right.
Well, and I think indies have a potential to really do that and to experiment with it, because we can say the word fuck and nobody's going to care, right? Whereas Apple, they drop the F-bomb, you know, that's not part of their identity. And if I may draw a criticism about what we've done wrong, is we've failed to have an identity largely. You know, our games have been, you start the game, you play the game, you finish the game. You know, if you were here for a demo of the beta, we included things like a meditation track, which is, it's ridiculous. Who's heard of a meditation? And we had an anti-meditation that actually makes you more tense. Little things that help people identify who you are and what you're doing and say that is a
At the end of the alpha, we had. Actually, let's just go into the questions.
One question. How did you come up with your name? Was that like the end of months of brainstorming? Or?
Oh, Dejobaan, it's the Greco-Nordic god of games and entertainment. Does anybody want to call me out on that?
Yeah. Greco-Roman.
Sorry, Greco-Nordic.
Greco-Nordic.
Okay, you're the third out of 3 people for 10 years. I've been saying this line of BS and nobody gets it.
Dude, I love Greco-Nordic's awesome because you just cut out the middle of Europe.
Yeah.